Lebanon and Israel have held their first direct talks in decades in what was described as a positive step towards peace. The development comes as fears were growing that if Israel might renew a fully fledged offensive against the militant group Hezbollah, and as a year-long ceasefire appears tenuous. But Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam said his country was still far from normalization or economic relations with Israel. Joining me now is Dr. Helyer, Senior Fellow in Geopolitics, International Security and Middle East Studies at the Royal United Services Institute in London. Good morning, Dr. Helyer, and thank you for joining us. These exchanges are the first of their kind in decades. How significant are they in your opinion?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the program. So they're significant in the sense that they're quite symbolic. As you say, they're the first ones that have happened in decades. But it's hard to separate this move from the pressure that's been building from the Trump administration on Lebanon to engage more directly with the Israelis. The Israelis and the Lebanese have had a ceasefire over the past year. But that ceasefire has been violated repeatedly by the Israelis, who continue to occupy positions in southern Lebanon and continue to strike wherever they see fit within Lebanon more generally. So for the first time, there have been these direct talks. The Israelis are talking about them as opportunities for economic collaboration and things like that. Of course, the Lebanese are very far from that. The Lebanese see the Israelis quite accurately as occupying their territory in the south, bombing it regularly as they've been engaging in countries in the surrounding neighborhood, most significantly, of course, Palestine and Syria. So it's difficult to see this as a massive breakthrough and more of an opportunity for the Israelis to signal to Washington that they're trying to go down this route of building economic ties wherever they can see fit and engaging in that sort of economic transactionalism. But unless there are serious moves by the Israelis to commit to actually leaving Lebanon and ending these sorts of vigilante strikes, I don't think we're going to be seeing very much progress at all.
Now, who stands to gain more from these talks, be it the talks as they are currently happening or ones that might actually develop further?
So here's the issue. The talks are meant in any negotiation to come to a deal which both sides are meant to abide by. There's already a deal that's been on the table that the Israelis and the Lebanese have ostensibly agreed to, but it's been consistently violated by the Israelis, most repeatedly over the past year. And you've seen this in other situations as well. We're talking about Lebanon today, but of course there's a ceasefire deal being put into implementation on Gaza, which has been violated multiple times by the Israelis in terms of both ways traffic in Rafah, constantly moving this yellow line. So there's a lot of distrust, I think, with actors in the region when it comes to engaging in these sorts of deals with the Israelis, unless there's a guarantor that will actually hold the Israelis to account when or if they violate the deal. And as yet, people expect that to be the United States because nobody else would be able to do it. But the United States hasn't shown that it's willing to actually apply that pressure and use that leverage. So talk of ceasefires and deals becomes rather premature in that regard.
Now, in the distant future, Israel is demanding that Hezbollah be completely disarmed, even if a Lebanese government had the will to do Israel's bidding in this. How capable would they be of disarming Hezbollah?
So let's be clear, the disarming of Hezbollah, I don't think is simply a matter of Israel's bidding. I think that there are large groups of Lebanese that would want to see all military force, all guns and arms be in the hands solely of the Lebanese state. It's simply not tenable for the medium to long term that not be the case. You can't have a state within a state. And I think the Lebanese writ large have a lot of support for that particular idea to have a monopoly of power over arms and weaponry. But as you say, part of the issue here is about capacity and the ability of the state to reassert its power, particularly over Hezbollah, and particularly since Hezbollah has grown in terms of its own power over the course of the past decade. Of course, in the past couple of years, they've taken a massive setback because of Israeli strikes and attacks. But I think that there is a lot of political will within Lebanon to see that happen, so that there is a monopoly of power that is centered within the state. And particularly so that foreign powers do not have this sort of engagement within Lebanese politics, particularly the Iranians, because the Iranians, of course, exert huge amounts of influence over Lebanese politics via Hezbollah. So I don't think it's purely about Israel having a demand. I think that this is something that goes much further beyond that. I think, again, within Lebanon, there are huge swathes of people that want to see all monopoly of force being centered in the state. The question is how to do it without pushing Lebanese society towards civil war, particularly considering that, again, the Israelis occupy parts of southern Lebanon. They still have positions within southern Lebanon that they refuse to leave, and they continue to strike Lebanon. This, unfortunately, is a playbook that we've seen in other countries where the effort to quote unquote engage in paramountcy, as the Israelis seem to be doing in different countries in the region, really disrupts and destabilizes any effort at de-escalation and coming to a sustainable solution within countries like Lebanon and like Syria and, of course, like Palestine.
Now, Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam said yesterday that normalization with Israel is still a long way off. Does the fact that he didn't rule it out completely tell us anything?
It only tells us that in Washington, D.C., they've been talking about normalization for so long that many politicians within the region simply don't want to have to tell the Americans, forget it, it's never happening. I think that you could envisage a scenario many years from now where the Lebanese would normalize. But frankly, the ball isn't in the Lebanese court in that regard. This is about Israel. Israel had the opportunity to normalize with the entirety of the Arab world and far beyond the Arab world since the Arab Peace Initiative was declared back, more than 20 years ago. The Saudi-led initiative, which Lebanon, of course, signed up to. The Israelis have had the opportunity to normalize with a number of Arab states since then on a bilateral basis as well, including most significantly the Saudis. And the Saudis have made it very clear that they would normalize. But there are certain very basic, I have to say, very basic minimal conditions, and those include a Palestinian state. When it comes to the Saudis in particular, their demands are really quite low. And yet the Israelis have balked at the idea of a Palestinian state. They've even balked at the idea of having the Palestinian Authority return to Gaza, let alone having any sort of linkage between Gaza and the West Bank. Of course, when it comes to the Arab world generally, and I have to say the international community more widely, with the exception of the United States, this is a very clear-cut issue. Israel is an illegal occupation of the West Bank, of East Jerusalem, of Gaza, and of the Golan Heights, and needs to withdraw.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. H.A. Helyer, Senior Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute in London.